Welcome back to Total Football, our Champions League reaction shows on Euro Football Daily. And oh my goodness, what a game we have to react to tonight. Liverpool have been embarrassed 2-5, 5-2. Anyway, I can't say it, but it happened. Real Madrid have thrashed them at Anfield. They went 2-0 up, but absolutely disintegrated. What a game we have just witnessed, Joe Tomlinson. What are your immediate thoughts?
That was so much fun to watch. It was one of the most enjoyable games, probably a Man United fan I've watched this season, honestly. I can't believe quite how badly Liverpool have capitulated there in the second half. They were in such a dominant position at 2-0. You know, we were there, sat in the studio watching it thinking, what is going on with Madrid here? Madrid are all over the place. Like, it's not a ringing endorsement of La Liga, this performance from Madrid. And then they just switched it on. As soon as the first goal went in, you felt like from that moment onwards, they were in constant control of the game. I know that Alisson had a bit of a stinker, but in the second half in particular, Liverpool just could not get near them, couldn't get a foot on the ball. And for me, the game was won in midfield. I think it was a tale of Camavinga, Modric and Valverde versus, you know, a pretty poor Fabinho on the night, you know, Bajcetic, who's trying to do everything, but he's still only 18, and a pretty poor Henderson. I think the midfield is where the game was won and lost, and there was only one winner there.
Yeah, absolutely. It was pretty one-sided. I also think Vinicius Junior was
what a player.
Sensational. I don't think Real Madrid had to get out of third gear for most of this game. It was so one-sided. And Vinicius Junior, just every time he plucked the ball out of the air, they were playing some magnificent left-sided passes towards him. Rodrigo barely got a touch, seemingly. It was all about Vinicius. Every time, perfect control. Trent and Gomez didn't know how to deal with him whatsoever. I thought Trent, you know, this is the fifth time I think we've seen this matchup. It's been incredibly one-sided every single time. Joe Gomez, I'm sorry, just not the same player anymore. Just not the same player at all. I know he's had a hard time with injury, but I thought he was absolutely atrocious on the night. And the less said about Fabinho, the better as well. For an experienced player, if Klopp's got anything about him, which we'll talk about it in due course, I'm not sure whether...
He does have something about
I'm not sure whether he'll survive this summer, Fabinho, to be honest, after this season. It's almost inexcusable. Joe, let's talk about, you know, some of the better performers, if we want to say from a Liverpool perspective. Was there any shining light whatsoever? Any redeeming features?
Well, I thought in the early exchanges, I thought Darwin and Gakpo's link-up continues to look like it's got something going there. A little bit of flourishing sprouts from the ground. Nothing amazing, but certainly the way they interchanged must excite Liverpool fans. You know, Darwin took his goal brilliantly. That was a fantastic finish. Quite un-Darwin-like finish, you would suggest, because, you know, he does get ridiculed, especially online, for, you know, being a bit of a clumsy finisher. He's one of the biggest underperformers in terms of expected goals in the entirety of Europe. To produce a little back heel Cruyff turn flick in that position was lovely. The second goal, obviously, is just sheer fluke. Courtois has had an absolute weapon there, but looking across the rest of I don't think anybody else... I don't know, nobody else really stood out to me as having a good performance today. I don't look at this Liverpool team now and be struck with fear. You used to look at it and think, wow, there's so many players here that could hurt you in so many different ways. Without Sadio Mane stretching teams in behind, you know, Salah didn't really do too much. You know, some nice little bits of play in and around the box, but nothing amazing. The midfield I thought was pretty poor. Joe Gomez, we spoke about, had a poor game. Trent didn't really offer much. You know, Andy Robertson huffed and puffed. Alisson had a whiff for the set. I thought it was a poor performance from Liverpool, and it looked like they were just starting to refine their form, didn't it? You know, really great win against Newcastle at St James's Park, despite the fact Nick Pope did get sent off. A great win in the Merseyside derby, and people were talking about them. You know, they are going to be a favourite for the top four. They are going to go and challenge teams deep in Europe. Judging on what we've just seen tonight, that felt like a major trip in the road, because they were poor from front to back.
Absolutely, and we've seen it so far this season. They put a couple of good results together, and then there's step backs again, and it's just so frustrating. And it's the same story in the Champions League. Like, the Champions League has actually been their shining light so far this season. They were only topped by topping the group by Napoli on goal difference. I think the only difference was about 3. And really that came down to their first performance of the opening match week as well in the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium. They lost 4-1. They were ripped apart by Napoli. But after that, they went 5 wins out of 5. And they were unfortunate to draw Real Madrid in this tie.
Yeah.
But having been 2-0 up in 15 minutes, having played them off the park in that 15 minutes,
agility.
That press looked brilliant. They looked back at their kind of best. To concede 5 at Anfield, it was a humbling, it was a humiliation, and they absolutely crumbled. And to do it, against a Real Madrid side that were missing Tchouaméni, that were missing Toni Kroos, that had David Alaba go off after 27 minutes, it's just pretty damning about where they are mentally as well as just physically in terms of their togetherness. But also, let's give some credit to some more Real Madrid players.
We got to give them the flowers.
I mean, for starters, a player that I didn't think we'd be talking about in a review show, Nacho.
I loved his performance. I actually thought Alaba was looking a bit shaky up against Salah. I thought Nacho actually offered them more solidity when he came on. I mean, some of his numbers, 2 tackles, 4 interceptions, 4 clearances, some unreal driving runs into the midfield, a lot of composure on the ball. I thought he was superb. I mean, I just love Camavinga. Eduardo Camavinga at his age, his composure
he really does
in the
love
midfield, the ability to just open his body up, turn, little drop shoulder. It's just a fabulous player to watch. And when is he going to stop? How can Modric at 37 be doing this? He's unpressable. When Liverpool's midfield tried to attack that moment of a slight port, he makes them look stupid. It's just a fabulous player to watch yet again. We've spoken about, obviously, Vinicius, one of the most exciting wingers in Europe. There's so many good attacking-minded, left-sided wingers at the moment in European football. It is scary. Madrid was just awesome. Very, very composed, very relaxed, very experienced, and you can see why they're a lot of people's favourites to win the competition.
Absolutely. I mean, who would bet against them after that run last year? They obviously beat PSG with a second-half, second-leg hat-trick from Karim Benzema, late goals to knock out Chelsea, Man City, and then they were not at their best in the Champions League final. I think they only got 2 shots on target, but they are just big-game players. Courtois pulling off 9 saves, and Liverpool now haven't beaten them since 2009, and it feels like a big old hoodoo. I think that's 6 games ago. Joe, Liverpool, what's next for them? What does Klopp change? Because it feels like he's tried a lot of different things this season.
It's frustrating, isn't it? Because you saw against Everton and the weekend against Newcastle, it felt like they'd stumbled across something that works. Bajic not in the deepest role, playing alongside Fabinho, Henderson offering legs in there, Gakpo through the middle, Darwin off the left. It all felt like, maybe things are just starting to slot into place. Today, it just all sort of crumbled before your eyes, didn't it? Yes, there was some good moments from Gakpo and Darwin, but the midfield structure felt like it just fell apart as soon as they beat the press. The back line felt like it was super vulnerable and exposed in the right-hand channel, especially up against Vinicius. And when Karim Benzema came into that half space, it was pretty much a disaster. I mean, the Crystal Palace game now feels massive. They cannot lose against Crystal Palace on Saturday, and I don't think they will. I think they will bounce back from this. I think they will be fine, and they're very real top 4 contenders. But, this was a bad day for Jurgen Klopp. This was a really bad day. I think there are Liverpool fans at home that will have been thinking, we might not get into the Champions League, but we can win the Champions League. It's a winnable competition this year. I don't think there's a single team that you look at and go, by far and away the best team in the competition. And tonight, just felt a mess back to front really after the first 15 minutes and they're out. They're not going to win 3-0 at the Bernabeu. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
I mean, thank goodness away goals don't count, which is the one bonus, because, it's a 3-0 defeat effectively. It's not a 3.5 or whatever you want to count with away goals. But yeah, as you say, they've got Wolves next week on Wednesday, who they've recently lost to at Molineux. Then they've got Man United the following weekend, and the games just come thick and fast. And then they'll have the second leg against Real Madrid. From a Real Madrid perspective, Ancelotti and that side have taken a little bit of flack over the last month or so. Since the World Cup, they've dropped points in 3 of their 8 La Liga games. They've lost to Mallorca in that time. They lost to Villarreal, who have recently changed manager to Quique Setien. But they have scored quite a few goals recently. They beat Elche 4-0, then Osasuna 2-0, also won the Club World Cup. But it is just this competition. It is their place. It is their history. 14-time champions. Ancelotti's won it 4 times. And who would bet against them? I think they've now scored 3 or more goals in 5 of their last 6 Champions League knockout ties. Absolutely incredible. And they've got these players that just rise to the occasion, consistently in this competition. I don't even think someone like Benzema had his best game tonight at all.
He didn't need to, though. And that's potentially the worrying thing for Liverpool, isn't it? The back line, it just looks so fragile. And, we spoke briefly earlier about how ruthless can Jurgen Klopp be and how ruthless will he be? You think of Sir Alex Ferguson when he was changing over a team, extremely ruthless. Ronaldo doesn't want to be here, okay, he's going. Defenders out the door, think of players like Jaap Stam. People at the time say it's not the right decision. Yeah, Juan Sebastian Veron, prime example. We go all the way back to like Mark Hughes, Paul Ince back in the 90s. Totally willing to go, it's time to turn the team over here. let's let him go. Pep has done it consistently throughout his career. Recently, obviously, Zinchenko, Jesus, Cancelo. At the moment, he's being criticised for it. But next season, you look at it and you think, wow, was that a really smart decision, actually? Is Jurgen Klopp ruthless enough to do that? Is he ruthless enough to go, Fabinho, not the player he was, he's gone. Milner, 1 too many years, gone. Henderson, not ready, gone. Joe Gomez, gone. Is he ruthless enough to stand up and go, I'm going to turn this team over now, and it might cost me for 6 months, but overall it's going to be a good thing? I'm interested to see. I think he probably is, but I'm sure Liverpool fans are kind of wanting it to happen. At the moment, still seeing Henderson in there, still seeing Joe Gomez in there, still seeing James Milner come off the bench. I think it's partly to do with the ownership and the FSG's backing of him, which needs massive amounts of money in the summer. But equally, I would just like to see Klopp be ruthless and go, yes, you've been a hero for me, but it's time to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got the oldest average age in the Premier League this season, which is pretty damning. But it's the hardest thing to do in football.
It is.
Keep being successful, keep rebuilding. The only manager that's really managed to do it really effectively, consistently, is Sir Alex. And there was the occasional dip in there, like in the early 2000s. But it will be fascinating to see. I mean, he didn't manage to do it that effectively at Dortmund. And it just feels like, as you say, a lot of players need to be moved on in the summer, or at least become even more peripheral members. But you named 3 midfielders there. They already look short in that area. They can't realistically get rid of all 3. So I think Fabinho might survive, but there are massive, massive question marks over a number of their players and their manager and their owners right now, who have put the club up for sale, or at least looking for investment. Looking for investment. They need a new director of football. I think their head of recruitment's moved on as well. It is chaos at Liverpool, and in a competition where they wanted to look for a bit of calm this season, they've been thrashed 5-2 by Real Madrid and look like they're going to exit the Champions League at the last 16 stage for the first time since 2019-20, when they lost to Atletico Madrid. So, Liverpool fans, it's been a pretty troubling night. We're still trying to make sense of it here, but we want to hear from you in the comments. What does Klopp do next? And Real Madrid fans, how delighted are you with this result? What does Ancelotti do to keep this run continuing? Can you cut down that lead that Barcelona have in the top of La Liga? Let us know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to EuroFootball Daily, and we'll catch you tomorrow.